anyway. Just you got your camera set up and everything?
Yeah, I have a camera right here, off looking at me, getting like this view, and then yeah, you got that camera there. So.
Okay, all right, fair enough. What's your day been like, man? Busy.
Slow. I learned a really good friend and mentor passed away yesterday, so that was kind of shitty. But it was a long time coming. I mean, he had a stage 4 cancer for years, and was actually in experimental treatment. So the last few years was definitely borrowed time, thanks to some really good science, and we had him for a few more years. So yeah, he passed away yesterday, and so
I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to hear that.
But life goes on, you know.
Yeah.
We got to keep going. So
I've lost friends too, man, and people that like nothing like that. I haven't had any friends that young, you know, from cancer, but lots of suicides.
That sucks. I mean, I'm at the age now where some of my longtime friends are going to start dying off, which sucks. Yeah. So I'm not looking forward to that. You know, growing up, it's usually like family that, you know, great grandparents or grandparents, aunts and uncles and stuff like that. But now, I'm up there. I'm how old am I? I keep forgetting. I don't keep track anymore. When I hit 50, I just stopped. I think I'm, it's 2024. So I'm 52.
You're about the same age as my brother.
Yeah.
My brother and I are 9 years apart.
Ooh,
I'm 42.
Okay.
So
my brother, I have a younger brother who's 10 years younger than I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's my age.
Yeah.
Right on. Yeah, it's life is fun, and it's very, you know, like you go through your 20s and everything, and your life's just starting, you know, and I mean, you start, your brain fully develops, and you start becoming the person that you're going to be for the rest of your life, you know, in a lot of ways. Your personality things are pretty much set, and you start making friends with this person or that person. But I always had friends that I grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, once they started dying, you know, from some of them was like car accidents or whatever, but I had a couple of friends the past couple of years, they killed themselves, or heroin.
Mm.
Heroin's taken a lot of my friends. And it's just like, I'm like, this is what, I don't know. Life that you never really prepares you for what really happens.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know.
And we get desensitized or to some things, and we also have a different perspective because of Hollywood. You know, we see sitcoms and we watch movies and we see how things should be or that we fantasize they are. But the real world, we get like that. A big question always comes up, like, what happens? What do we do if one of us dies? Like my wife and I, like, what happens if we wake up one day and the other one doesn't?
Yeah.
Like, what's the process? Well, I don't even know what to do. Like, I guess call 911 and be like, my wife's not breathing, you know, or something like that. It's like, what do we do? You know?
Yeah.
Because you think like old age is supposed to kick in and you go to the hospital and that's it. You usually don't come home. But now we have a lot more people in hospice. And they do come home and they die at home, but there's somebody there. So there's someone that takes care of that and knows the process. So when you start learning about all this shit, like we've gone through it. We've had people going through hospice, and it's a shitty thing. It's a really awful thing. but that's the reality of life. So it's just part of it.
Yeah. I think well, clearly that's why there are people who want there to be more.
Oh yeah. It would be great.
What was I going to say? Well, maybe it'll come back to me. All right. So, audio. What do you have for your audio? What are you using for audio? Like, what can I hear you with right now?
What can
Are
you
you recording that?
I'm not recording anything. It's recording. Well, I mean, it's the one camera is probably recording, but everything's coming through the microphone, pumping into this.
Let me make sure that
I think
I am recording the audio too. Let me make sure.
Should be.
I might have to. Recordings. Okay.
I think StreamYard allows for you to for individuals to record audio. Let's see where that is though. I've never done that. Did I lose you? I think I lost you.
I promise I don't have my head in my ass, man.
It's all right. I mean, I would make the same mistake too. I forgot. Like, yeah, StreamYard will, when you are done recording, I think it's done.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. I'm still new to this program, so.
All right.
All right. Okay, I'm going to ask you the same questions I asked my paranormal investigators I interviewed. Everybody's answering these questions. I will answer these questions too. So you're a bit different because you've been a paranormal investigator before. So I guess I kind of want. I mean, I'll just ask you this: what? Oh, actually, let's first introduce yourself for me and tell me what you do.
So my name is Kenny Biddle. I am the chief investigator for the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry, and my job is basically to investigate strange claims: ghosts, haunted houses, UFOs, aliens, monsters, cryptids, religious mysteries, any kind of strange things. And part of my job is also to go out and lecture. I do not only do live streams and podcasts and stuff like that, but I also travel the country and do lectures on strategies for solving mysteries. I talk about photographic anomalies and where they came from, how they're created, and basically educate people on investigative methods, critical thinking skills, skepticism, and stuff like that. So that's me in a nutshell.
All right. Now, what made you want to be a paranormal investigator?
So I grew up in the 70s, and I grew up with shows like In Search of and Unsolved Mysteries and stuff like that. I've always had an interest. I was also raised Catholic, so I had that belief in me where there was an afterlife, that weird things could happen. You know, people could walk on water. People could be healed magically. These were not foreign concepts to me. So making the leap onto the idea that ghosts exist, that the spirits of the dead come back was not a long stretch. It was very appealing to me, especially because, you know, when people die, you're growing up, people start dying off, like your grandparents and stuff. You want to see them again. So that idea of an afterlife was a happy thought, and I believed in it. So when I got older, I wanted to get into it more. Like, what is going on? What are people experiencing? And I jumped in head first, but I jumped in based on my beliefs. I didn't base it on science or proper investigative methods. I based it on beliefs, and then what I saw on TV. You know, I just mimicked what I saw on TV, which was a mistake. And then the more I learned, especially about photography and video editing, the more I understood skepticism and critical thinking, got into the skeptical literature, which I also found like a Skeptical Inquirer magazine, which is the magazine I now write for, and realized there was a lot that I was doing wrong. And that just made me want to learn more. And here I am today, still investigating paranormal claims, but with a different perspective.
Okay. What is it you hope to achieve by doing what you're doing?
My goal is to educate people, to better what they're doing, to help them progress. I'm not saying I know all the answers, because I don't. I'm just saying that I've taken the time to learn some of these skills, some of these ways to investigate these mysteries, to realize that many are illusions or optical illusions. They are misperceptions. They are basic mistakes. And then many of them are also outright hoaxes, and trying to figure out the clues that lead you to a proper conclusion takes time. It takes a lot of learning, takes a lot of experience, takes a lot of field work. And I'm trying to pass that knowledge on to anyone that's interested and just help better the quality of their investigations.
Is truth something you're after?
That's exactly what I'm after. I'm trying to get to the... well, I mean, the truth, some might say truth is subjective. You know, it's their own truth. But I'm trying to figure out what actually is going on. I don't go in with a preconceived belief. Contrary to what people might think, I don't go into a haunted house with the idea that, no, it's definitely not haunted. That's not my idea. That's not my perspective. I'm going in there going, okay, people are experiencing something. What are they experiencing? That's what I want to know. So whether the conclusion comes to it's a ghost, or it's a creaky floorboard, or someone that's pulling a prank, whatever the data leads, that's where I'm going to go. That's where I'm going to conclude.
All right, so I want to ask you this. It's more of a personal thing. Can you think of a time when someone, whether it be on your team or someone sent you a video or whatever, can you think of a time when someone tried to fool you, or they did fool you, either on an investigation or with some sort of, false evidence?
There's been a few times where I have found I've been part of a ghost hunting team where I did find out that some of the teammates were whispering in order to create EVPs. I found out that they also would not put down the recorder, so they would hold on to it and purposely move their hands around the recorder. That creates static or the friction noise, and it would create these weird noises. There was a time I went to a place called Whisper's Estate, and I found that there were speakers in the basement that were not connected at the time, but most likely had been used previously, because that place was known for hearing a little girl sing nursery rhymes, and people could hear it. It wasn't something that they would record and listen to later. They were actively hearing it. And I discovered speakers set up in the basement, pointed up through vents. But those are some examples of what I found.
Wow, I'm really glad I asked you that, because I've been debating what my next project will be on. There are two places that I'm interested in. One of them is the Monroe House, and the other one is Whisper's Estate.
Oh, cool. I have not been there for years. I would say it was oh my goodness. I would say it's probably like 10 to 15 years ago that I was there. But I still have pictures of the speakers that we found. I think there's a picture of me there was a cover over the main stairwell. So underneath the steps going from the second floor to the first floor, that was all covered up. And there was a vent in there. There was like a aluminum chute that went down to the basement. And there's a picture of me standing in it. Like my torso is coming out at the top. And, but I do have pictures of the speakers, that we found. So interesting. I mean, I'd love to go back there. So if you get a chance, and set it up, let me know. And if I can make it, I'd love to come out and join you.
Oh, right on. Yeah, I'm still figuring those details out, but yeah, I would definitely let you know. That'd be awesome. Okay, so you've never had any one person though on your team or anything like that try to fool you. It was just where you were at a place and they were trying to kind of mess with you. You feel like possibly okay.
Yeah. No one on my own team, because I did have a ghost hunting team that was my own at one time, and as far as I know, nobody was deliberately trying to fool me. It's mostly just owners.
Fair enough. All right. Let's take it to like your own personal life for a second. Somebody, whether it be a family member or a friend, lifelong friend, or whatever, it just as long as this describes somebody in your past, kind of go with it. How do you describe what it feels like to learn that you can't trust someone?
Oh, terrible. It's a tricky situation because, to be honest, like I trust people only so far. And I've learned that it's not because of deliberate mistrust or somebody deliberately did something to break that trust. It's that people make mistakes. So many people make mistakes. So I can't go out on a limb and just say, well, I believe this person because I trust them. I can't do that because they could make a mistake and I have no control over that. So that would make me look silly if I'm saying, yeah, I trust them. Of course they're right. And it turns out later that they're wrong. But if you find that somebody does, I guess, betray you, they do something deliberately to betray your trust, I think that's absolutely terrible, and I want nothing to do with that person anymore. I would be done with them. Because if you're going out of your way to do something that I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the event would be that breaks the trust, but if it's something that they did deliberately, then we have no need to be friends anymore.
Yeah. What do you think fake paranormal evidence does to the field of the paranormal?
I think it makes us all look silly, to be honest, everyone, including me, because when it's deliberately dishonest, when it's deliberately faked, and I mean, to be brutally honest, most times it's a terrible faking. Like they're not good at what they're doing. And there's a lot of signs. And when I have to go out of my way to demonstrate what's going on, it's that idea of like, I'm picking on the low hanging fruit. Everyone knows they're faking, but yet in most cases with that statement, not everyone knows exactly how they're doing it. So even when I try to explain it, or when people in the debunking community, especially like on YouTube, go to explain it, they're picking on the little guy. That's what they're usually accused of. But to be honest, I mean, it's when you fake stuff and you put it out there in the public and you promote it as real, you are making everyone look bad. You're promoting bad science, no science at all. Actually, you're promoting beliefs. You're exploiting your fan base, because if you have people that follow you, you have hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of followers, and they're hanging on every word you say, and you deliberately put out something that's fake, and you're doing it because you know they're going to believe you anyway. You're exploiting them. You're using them. And you're treating your audience like shit, and it's terrible. I mean, that deserves just immediate stop watching them, stop subscribing, stop whatever to them. And I think for everyone else, I mean, it does make my job harder, because the people that are constantly faking things are putting it out over and over and over again. Because once you get a trick, it's very easy to do, and you keep pumping out these videos, and it wastes time. It wastes the time where we could use that time on a genuine mystery, something that we can't figure out, that happened, that it's like, what's going on here? We don't know. But instead, we have to spend time looking at this deliberate fraud because they're trying to get as many YouTube clicks as possible, and I think it's terrible. And I think those people are they're assholes.
Well said. Why do you think people falsify paranormal evidence?
I think many do it for attention, because once you get that spotlight, people start craving it. When you get attention, because not everyone gets attention. Many of us just go through life, and it's just, our day-to-day routine. We just go through life, and we have these moments where we're at a party, and we have friends, and it's a celebration or something, and we feel good. There's other times when you get that taste of the spotlight, and it feels really good that everyone is looking at you. Everyone wants your attention. Everyone wants to be next to you. Everyone tries too hard to be your friend. And that can become addicting. So I think some people do it because they want that attention. They want people to look up to them. They're not looking for friends. They're looking for viewers. They're looking for an audience. And again, that goes back to exploiting the people. But they're also looking for money, because a lot of these platforms, they offer, if you have 100,000 views or something like that, you get money. I don't know. I've never gotten that. I've never gotten anywhere near that many views. But once you get on that track, you start making pretty decent money, and you got to keep that going. If you don't keep going like every other day or every week putting out a video, then you're going to lose that. And people get addicted to that extra cash. And then being treated like royalty, like a celebrity, because other shows are going to reach out and they're going to want you to come on as a guest. They're going to invite you to conferences. You're going to be able to say, hey, I'll come to your conference, but there's a fee, or pay my hotel room and, pay for dinner or a couple nights. And that way they get a free ride. They get a free weekend at a different location. Usually they get paid to travel in there. They get to hang out, be a celebrity, be in the spotlight for free. So it's really addicting. And I guess that's why some of them, not all, I wouldn't say everyone does it, but I think the majority of the people we're talking about, and I think we're getting somewhere, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're talking about like a lot of these, like big channels that fake content quite often and constantly do it, for more and more and more and more views. So yeah, I think those reasons are spot on for a lot of that.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're right. I have another channel, and I have a couple of videos that went viral and still get views. And if the money from that went away, I'd be upset. I didn't have to fake anything. It was, but right. I've been on that YouTube grind, and that alone is addicting. Just being on that grind. Yeah.
And then you get adjusted to a lifestyle, because you have that extra cash coming in, and then some of these people, again, not all, but some, make the mistake of living beyond their means. Like I live within my means. I know how much money I make per year, and for my real job, my main job, and I live within that. Anything extra is extra. That's like going out to a date night dinner on a Friday night, or a Saturday night. Anything extras like that, great. Maybe that's a movie that we go out to, but to depend on that, when you get maybe $1,000 a month or more, I'm sure many people are getting a lot more than that. But if you get like a couple grand a month and you start relying on that to go out and doing all these things, once it starts drying up, it's like, oh shit, I got to do something. I gotta make that happen again. I got to get back the numbers back up. And that's when the temptation to start faking shit comes into play. And it's sad. Or making it just sensationalized, making nothing seem like it's spooky or scary, or overlaying. We've seen that a lot with some videos where they just add sounds, they add some effects into it just to create content. It's horrible. It's deceiving the public.
How do you think it would feel if someone that was associated with you, and maybe you've dealt with this, was accused of faking evidence? Like, what are you afraid that it will affect your credibility?
No, I mean, because I work with, I try to work with as many people as possible. I mean, if they're known to hoax things, then no, I won't work with them. If they have that reputation before I meet them. But if it's found out that later on, like they fake something, then I'm going to look at it and go, all right, well, where's the evidence? I'm not going to just defend someone just because we're friends. Because again, it goes back to the trust thing. If they actually faked something and they're trying to pass it off or use our friendship to say, hey, you can trust me because I work with him, then you're an asshole again, because now you're using me to make it look like you're not doing anything wrong. So anyway, back to your point. If I did find out somebody was faking something, I have no problem exposing that. I have no problem saying, hey, you know what? I heard these rumors. I looked into it. I talked to them, but I also dug around and found out that, yeah, they were faking it. And I'll come right out and say it, because this is, again, to me, this is business. This is not personal. This is not friendship based. If you're faking it, you're faking it. And I think you're the worst. In my line of work, I mean, I deal with like psychics. I deal with psychics that exploit children and other people to gain money, to be popular. And that crosses over into anything. If you're faking video footage of alleged ghost or Bigfoot or, a UFO in the sky, and you're faking it in order to get attention, get on TV or make some money, you're wrong. You're an a-hole. And I have no problem telling people that and then explaining why I think that. I think that's very important. Not just saying, yeah, I think he's fake, and leaving it at that. I will never do that. If I'm going to say somebody's fake, that comes down to now I'm making a claim, and the burden of proof is now on me to prove that he's being fake. So I would always, if I think someone is faking something, I will give you all the evidence that I have that supports that claim. There you go.
Very good. If you could, let's say you're face to face with somebody that's fake, that fakes evidence, what do you say to him?
Why'd you do it? Like, what was your motivation in faking it? Or if I'm not sure exactly how they did it, I'd be like, come on, man. How'd you do it? Did you use a string? Did you use magician's thread? Did you use air blower? How'd you do it? Tell me. And I mean, I guess that's just coming at it from a wide spectrum. Like, I don't know what the situation is. Are we on a panel discussion and somebody just brings up this question and says, you say he faked it, and then now it's out for discussion? I'll be like, yeah, like I did say he faked it, and I also provided all the evidence to it. So if he or she wants to refute that, then I'm happy to look at their evidence. And I think that's it. I mean, there's no reason to get mad. There's no reason to get upset. It's just, it is what it is. All my work is out there. If I do something like this, it's going to be out there for the public to see, including the person that I'm making that accusation against. And if they want to come back at me and say, well, no, I will listen. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, since you watched episode 1 and 2 and you took notes, and since I did all that with against Kent, I felt, well, it's only fair for me to give him, a place to defend himself, and he wouldn't do it. I asked him time and time again. I gave him several opportunities. Hey, look, like, it would be in your best interest to talk on these matters. I told him, if you don't, it's really not going to look good for you, and I don't think that's fair. And I wasn't being threatening. I was just saying, This is the truth of it. But he didn't know what was about to happen. He really didn't. And he didn't, I don't think when I went out there, he understood exactly what was happening. You know, I think he thought of it as this is just another YouTube channel doing another YouTube video of ghost hunting and all this, which I did my best to explain to him. You know, I told him, like, if I find anything that I think is sketchy, I'm gonna bring that up. You know, and he said, yeah, that's fine. You know, no problem. But when it came time for us, and of course, episode 1 had dropped, and episode 2 was on the way out. I asked him then, you know, hey, would you be willing? And he just, nope, I don't want anything to do with anything that has anything to do with David Sear, which was the guy that he had out there digging holes.
Oh. You mean like because he fake putting the bones in there? Like, wow. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. It wasn't beneath him to record a video exploiting the young lady's death. You know, like that wasn't beneath him, but you know, meeting the guy after some of this came out, some of this information came out, like that's beneath him. That tells me a lot about Ken. That tells me like he has nothing. He has nothing to back it up. And how he reacted to you. Maybe he's just blaming it on David. But I think all around, he probably has nothing to stand on, no ground to stand on, because I mean, you recreated the window thing, which is funny because I did that like years ago. I did that because I came across his videos as well. And as soon as I started watching your documentary, I was like, I know this guy. I know exactly what we're going to. All right, I've done this. I had it come under the bed just like you did, and it's like, all right, this is easy to do. And I think I used tape, same as you, yeah, because that was the logical choice. But I think recreating that and then voicing your doubts, probably he realized that, oh shit, you know, they're on to me. There's nothing I can say. And he doesn't want to incriminate himself further. He doesn't want to make himself look silly on camera any further, because honestly, he does not look good at all in those 2 parts so far. And that's not just because of what you uncovered. And it's not you shouldn't feel at fault because you did exactly what you said you were going to do. You were investigating this stuff. And when you found something that was odd or off, you voiced your opinion, which is what you're supposed to do. And you went a step further and said, well, we're going to see if we can recreate this. And you did. So if he's upset about that, if he's upset and he still feels he's in the right, he should have came back and said, well, no, I can prove that, or I can prove that it wasn't that way, or I have evidence that shows it wasn't that way. But unfortunately, all of his footage is just, to be honest, it was crap. I mean, it was staged. It just painfully looked like it was staged to me. Just being in the dark, making sure the lights were off, the cuts, the blurring, the blur cuts, turning around real fast. I mean, I've demonstrated that so many times about just going one way, going really fast, turning around and pausing the video, and then setting up your scene, doing that turn real quick again, and the blurring just blends together. You never see the cut. So it's really easy to do, especially with a shitty camera and the dark. When it's in a dark environment, yeah. I'm sorry. I keep talking. Like, you got to stop. I will keep talking.
Well, the more you talk, the more I have to sift through and the more points that are coming out. So I'm completely okay with it, believe me.
Okay.
To be a fly on the wall when he watched my documentary.
I'm sure he was not happy.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a bit about the EVPs then. So I'm actually taking it a little bit further with you. I haven't asked the other guys about this because I just didn't.
Okay.
But yeah, well, I know that you took notes, like you took time, because I think you you expected maybe the documentary or the interview to be one thing, and for me it was more of a general thing, because what I'm trying to do is I'm playing. I've got Matt Benton on here. I've got Luke Millette, which is my friend, and the things that like I asked him these questions, and I asked Side Eye Guy and Crow these questions as well. But the thing about it was I want to play the answers next to each other and see how they line up.
Okay.
And it turns out that y'all are pretty much looking for the same thing. And I really need that to be a powerful message in episode 3, because a lot of people will look at the debunkers and say, oh, they're just mad, or they're jealous, or any number of other toxic reasons to be doing this stuff. And I know that it's not that way. And I think it's a common misconception with people that, especially those that follow these fakers and believe them, because that's what the people are following are telling them. The EVPs. What do you think about this? I've rattled it over and over and over in my head, and I thought, is there a speaker in the room somewhere at a super low volume that you wouldn't be able to necessarily hear it with your ears if you're not paying attention? Because a microphone would be able to pick that up pretty well. My problem with that is when you listen to them, they're not coming from one place in the room. So that's my argument against that. If my own argument against myself. Okay. He does live next to a gas station. The gas station is probably a good 50 to 75 feet away from him, maybe a little bit further than that.
Okay.
They're not like right next door, but it is the next building next to his house. So it's off a bit. But my thing is the voices don't sound like anyone yelling where sound would travel like that, It sounds like they're talking in the room with us. That's the thing about it that really gets me. Literally, those are the only two things that I could think of. Audio pollution from outside somewhere, or a speaker in the house somewhere. I can't really nail it down, and it's driving me crazy. And I really want them to be real. I'll tell you the types of equipment that was picking up the EVPs. It was a camera Rebel T6.
Okay.
I believe that is the only thing we captured EVPs on. I could be wrong about that. I also have a Tascam DR06, which I never held. I would turn it on and then I would set it down. And I don't know. I know that the ones in the first episode are all from that camera, that Rebel T6.
Okay. So did you have a external microphone? So you... Okay. All right. So I have a few notes. I have a lot of notes, honestly. One, and this is just an overall thing, I don't hear any voices. When we're separating, and I'm going to separate the ones that you are claiming came right on that camera from the ones that the responses and stuff from that very annoying ghost box thing. So I hear friction. All the noises that I hear are friction, and that I'm more confident with that now that you're telling me the handheld camera was used with the onboard microphone. So your hands are on that body of that, and you can have friction. We do hear friction in it. I also noticed that some of these sounds were amplified.
Yeah, I did that. I went through and cleaned them up.
Okay.
But they were still there, because I watched in Spectral, right? Like I would put it on Spectral, and because at first I didn't hear any of this shit. I came home and I'm going through everything and I'm thinking, God, I didn't get anything. This whole thing is a scam, you know? And perhaps that could have something to do with why I was like, oh, wow, an EVP, you know, because maybe, you know, like I was holding on hope.
Okay.
I'll admit I was holding on hope.
So you heard nothing the first time around?
No, because I didn't do any any audio cleaning. I did it raw. You know, I watched it all raw. I watched all the first camera. I know, right? I can't say anything like that without thinking of that guy. But like I watched all of this camera's footage and just the audio, and then I watched all of this camera's footage and then just the audio. I mean, it was a tedious experience.
Okay. So I have an issue with that process, because once you go through it, and I think this is a problem overall. This is not just you, so I'm not picking on you per se. I'm picking on the entire ghost hunting community, because this is a common routine. Is they want to clean up. Everyone wants to clean up the audio, and unfortunately, that means you're manipulating the data. You are changing the data. You're changing the sounds that are happening. And we can hear that. We can hear the difference. It's changing it. Is it cleaning it up? I don't think so. I think it's distorting it. And it's bringing out these small sounds even more. But in addition to that, you are already primed to hear something. And this is a big issue. There's a couple issues with priming that I have with the process, the documentary, and then in general. But there's usually a question that was asked, and so now we have context. We're listening specifically for an answer to that question, and we're going to try and hear something. And it's common for ghost hunters to listen for. If you ask for a name, they're going to listen for a name. If you ask for a piece of furniture, they're going to ask for a name of a they're going to listen for that. They're going to listen for chair or couch or sofa or table. They're going to listen for something like that. But then there's other things where you're trying to listen, and we're trying to make sense out of what we're hearing. And what we're hearing is frictional noises. They're background noises, because the microphone is now you're amplifying the sound that's coming out of there. You're cleaning it up, but it's manipulating that data. It's changing it. So you're hearing something. And if you're already convinced that you are hearing it, every time you hear it, it's going to reinforce that idea. One of the problems that I had with the delivery in the documentary was that at one point you actually complain about Kent and then ghost hunters or ghost hunting TV shows, how they tell you what to listen for, that they give you the idea. They say, hey, it says this, or we think it says that. And then that's what you hear. And then you proceeded to do exactly that for every one of your EVPs. Like before it was played, for instance, the one that said, I can't answer you. Before we even hear it, you tell the viewers that you hear a woman's voice, a female's voice. And then you tell us what you hear. And now there's no hope for hearing anything else. That's what people are going to hear. And then same with the other ones, the where's Kent, the yes. And even in those instances, I didn't hear that. I turned it up. I listened to the recordings, and I was just listening to the recording over and over again. And like, I heard different things. And it was funny. It was like that. You ever hear that Green Needle? The other, I forget what the other one. Brainstorm. Yeah. And if you're reading the words of one phrase, you hear it. And if you read the other phrase, you hear that with the same noise. Like with the, where's Kent? I heard her skin, like HER, her skin. And once I got that in my head, that's all I heard. So I didn't hear anything. I mean, overall, I didn't hear anything that sounded like a voice. I heard background noise. I heard friction from holding the camera. I would definitely suggest next time putting the camera on a tripod and not touching it, especially if you're using the internal mic, because that's just setting yourself up for failure, to be honest. And I'm not trying to be mean. I don't want to come across as mean. It's just, it's a preventative measure. It's a control over your experiment that needs to be in place to rule you out. And I mean, that from the start, to be honest, if we just went for a scientific approach, the fact that you were holding the camera automatically makes your data invalid, because you can create that noise just holding it. What else?
I wish to interject something here.
Sure.
So, what you're talking about, you complained about this and then you fucking did it. There's a reason why I did it that way. Because, like I said, it's time to debunk me in this episode.
Okay.
You see, I'm doing the things that these other guys are doing on purpose. You know, I mean, when we're holding the camera, I wasn't thinking that then, but the saying the name and all that stuff, or saying what I thought I heard and
priming,
all that, yeah. I did that on purpose.
Okay.
Yeah, because I do hear those voices, but I do know that there are answers for it, and that's why we're talking. Okay. You know.
All right.
Because and the whole thing is even though I firmly believe in that those EVPs, because I mean I'm hearing what you're saying, and I'm not saying you're wrong at all. It's interesting that you hear her skin and stuff like that. The thing that gets me, another thing is forget friction and all that stuff. Luke responds to a sound that he heard come from behind him. You know, he says he hears a voice, like he thought he heard something, and it was captured on the yeah. And then I thought it said something about like, "Can you hear me?" or something like that. That was something that was in the room with him. Okay. And he's deaf in one ear, which is interesting that he even heard anything at all. So that's another one of those where I'm like, what was that? You know, what is that? Is that anything at all? Is it? Because it's not a stomach. Anytime the stomachs were growling, we would say out loud, "That's our stomach," or whatever. And it came from behind him. There was no one there.
So with that, like, I did have notes on that too, and I did notice that. And my question was, if he, because he makes a comment on the documentary about he can't hear so well, yet he also says that Kent responded to it as well. So, I mean, if both of them heard it, and if he's already hard of hearing and he heard something, that makes me think it was probably loud enough that it was likely outside.
Yeah, I don't think I know Luke said that, but in the video, Kent never does respond to it. Okay. So I Luke's very when I was interviewing him, it was probably a year or two after that had happened, so he probably wasn't remembering things very well. But Kent never did respond to it. That happened a couple of times, which was interesting to me as well. That there were times where, because we heard a voice in the basement. Luke and I both heard a voice in the room with us. Okay. And Kent didn't say anything about it. Like, he didn't even react. And that kind of interests me, because if it was fake, you would think Kent would be like, "Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Oh my God!" You know, and he didn't do that.
I mean, I think he was doing that. Kent was doing that throughout the other documentary part. I mean, he was just stopping the interview and claiming that he heard something or saw something, and then would. Yeah. That's. I mean, that was apparent to me. Like, he was trying to get you guys to be focused on something else instead of him. I honestly, I think he was running out of things to say. But yeah, I mean, but even that, I mean, that's a good point to bring up, that you interviewed him like a year or so afterwards, and we're not sure about the details. So now it calls into question everything that's being said in those interviews. Like, all right, now you're remembering details from a year or so ago. Like, that's not going to fly. I can't count on those memories because it's fallible. And how many times have it been told? You only experienced it for 1 or 2 nights, or however nights. Like I think 3 nights you were there, maybe. Yeah. And now details are going to get fuzzy. And what else do I have? I'm just going. I have so many notes.
Yeah, for me, for people like Luke, who he just went there with me, and then I mean, like we reviewed the evidence together, but we did it like what you and I are doing right now. But for me, I'm dealing with this for the past 4 years.
Right.
And so I've got the footage. I'm here, and I remember the things much more clearly than everybody else does. As far as, I'm not saying that I'm infallible by any means, but yeah, asking him those questions about that. It's like, do you remember this? Yeah, can you tell me a little bit about it? Yeah, you're right, because I mean, he flat out does it. He's like, right. Well, I think Kit reacted to it too. But I also didn't have Luke talk much about the evidence other than like, hey, look, remember this, and show it to him, like the EVPs, and have him talk about it.
Right.
Luke didn't do a whole lot of talking in the first episode, and he did a little bit more in the second episode, but it wasn't about evidence. It was more of observational kind of talking.
Right.
Again, I'm trying to be as real as it can be, and
right.
And
right.
Yeah, because I'm not trying to do the same thing that everybody else is doing. I'm looking for the truth too. And Luke's story is really something that works me up, like what happened to his dad and why he's looking for it. It's just, those things really irritate me, that you have these people who are faking things. Anyway, I'm rambling.
It's all right. One other thing I want to touch on with that is that after it was during that segment, I think you're interviewing Luke, and he immediately says that, or assumes that, he heard an unexplainable noise, or a voice, and he actually calls it unexplainable. And that always makes me cringe, because I didn't see anyone go outside. Like, he turns around. It's definitely possible there was a noise that came out. I mean, I didn't hear any noise. I didn't hear any voice at all. So if he heard it, it probably came out from outside. It was muffled from going through the wall to get inside. And the first thing that should have been done was that you go outside, see if there's somebody out there. I don't know the layout of the house or where it is. Is there a sidewalk outside?
Not where they were. Well, I guess it would have switched straight to his driveway, which was covered in snow. Everything was covered in snow.
Okay.
It was like 10 degrees below zero at the time that we were there, like very cold.
And was that direction, you recall, facing the gas station? Okay. So this is a possibility that needed to be explored, and it wasn't. So right now it's unexplained because it wasn't investigated. And that's as far as we can go with it. So yeah, that's what I got on that. I'm looking at my notes for the other things. One thing I noticed, well, no, we can talk about that later. Some of the things, like the first EVP, I guess, was yes. Oh no, that was a ghost box too. I'm trying to separate. I didn't write down which ones were which. I'm just trying to go from memory now. There was another one called I Hate It. And again, well, I mean, we already talked about that, but you definitely primed everyone saying it was a younger woman and then played the clip saying, oh, yeah, I think it said this. I just thought that was funny, that I was like, motherfucker just complained about this and he's doing it. But I didn't hear that at all. I didn't hear those words whatsoever. And I kept doing the same. I mean, I didn't manipulate it. I didn't edit anything. I was just going off the raw one that you had, or the what you enhanced, and I still didn't hear it. So, and I mean, I got my coworker to leave because I had the speakers all the way up just so I could hear it as clear as possible. And then where was the where is Edmund? And there was a right here. Again, I didn't hear that. I mean, I'm hearing noise, but I'm just hearing noises. I'm not, and with imagination and knowing what I'm supposed to hear, yeah, I can hear it. But again, like the other one that was the where's Ken, and I heard her skin. Like if I thought of some other phrase, I can make that sound change, and I can hear something else. And that was interesting because you brought that up too. You actually brought it up after saying that after you went home and you listened to some of the audio, you realized that, like, I think Evil House was the example that you used, where you said you didn't know where that came from because when you listened to it again, you couldn't hear that. And I did have Evil. Where was it? Because I had a note on that where Evil House. Oh, I said, I wrote down that it sounds like you need to. And if you say it fast, you need to. For me, that's what I was hearing. Like, you need to do something else. That's what I was hearing. And this is a good example of why EVPs are so bad. There is no control over it. These are random noises that are open to interpretation, especially based on context. If you're listening to the question beforehand, you're going to get a interpretation that matches more closely with the question that was asked before it. If you take the question away and just play that for people, then you're going to get a lot of random stuff or nothing at all. People are just going to hear random noises. Or if they know that they're supposed to listen for something, they're going to hear something and they're going to give you an answer, but I think it's going to be all over the place. You're not going to get one. You're not going to get a consensus on one phrase. So that's what I got for now.
What's interesting to me, and I guess I don't know if this is me just again holding on to hope or what, but the where's Edmund right here. Was that no? What was the one? There's one that used her skin.
Yeah.
Right?
Where's Ken?
Yeah. But you're saying that you did hear a voice say that.
I'm not hearing a voice. That's not, let me clarify. I'm not hearing a human voice. I'm hearing a sound that I'm interpreting as words because I'm looking for words. I'm listening specifically for words. I'm hearing noise. I'm taking all that white noise, staticky shit, and I'm making something out of it. It's not, I don't think that's what's actually happened. I don't think any words were said. I think that's just what I'm creating because that was my goal. Let me see if I can hear something. Can I make out words? Yes, I can make out words, but I can do that listening to like a regular fan, like a mechanical fan. I can hear words. If I really try hard and listen to something specific, I can hear that. Doesn't mean I'm actually hearing a voice. And I think because we're dealing with a camera that has the internal mic attached to the body and the body's being held by hand and there's a lot of friction going on, you're getting frictional noises that are being mistaken for a human voice. Because, I mean, for me, to be honest, I expect if there's going to be a voice, there's a lot of problems. One, there's no, what's the mechanism that's causing this voice? We have vocal cords. We have a mouth, we have teeth, we have a tongue. We form words with all of these mechanisms. What's the mechanism by which a ghost is going to do that? And two, I forget what two was. What was two? So two is basically, I expect to hear a voice like you and I are communicating now. Not something that sounds, that's not a voice. We can tune into a radio station in between signals, and we can get static, and we can pick out different words if we listen closely enough. I think this is more of a desire to hear something, to catch something that it might have been a little noise that, you were holding a camera. Where's my cameras? Say you were holding a camera, and at that moment, you just went like that, or just moved your finger like this. And that caused enough of a peak in that little bit of noise coming from the friction where you noticed it and said, oh, wait, there's something, that might be something. And it just happened to coincide with a question that was asked. And then now we focus on that, amplify it. We changed the data. We changed the sound. And once you hear something, you think you hear something, that's all you're going to hear. You're going to replay it over and over again, and it's just going to continue to reinforce what you already believe. And I think, unfortunately, that's the trap that you fell into here. I know you're holding on to these, and I don't want to be the one that destroys it, but I don't think you caught anything extraordinary here. I think you caught regular noises.
I'm perfectly okay with that.
Okay.
Because after all, I'm seeking the truth, right? Even if the truth isn't something it's like, damn it. Like, well, then that's right. The truth. It's called being an adult.
It's being an adult. It's also realizing that if you were going to go out on a limb here and call yourself an investigator at any point, then it is therefore your responsibility to investigate. That's not saying that your job is to prove something right. It's not your job to prove something wrong. It's to investigate and come to a conclusion based on solid data. And when the data leads to a conclusion that says, no, this is probably not what I think it is, then unfortunately, you got to go with that conclusion until you get new information. If new information comes up, then you look at that and say, all right, it's 10 years from now, we have better software or something like that, or we went back a few more times, we got additional data and recordings, and now we're looking at everything as a whole. Okay, now we reopen the case and we look at it again. But just based on that, there is unfortunately nothing that stands out to me.
Spirit box stuff. The one really, when it came down to the spirit box, I am so there were just some things that I heard and I put them on the screen because I was like, well, that's interesting. Is that really what I'm hearing? And I listened to it, several times. But I never focus on it. Until one time in episode 2, where I don't know what story he's talking about. I don't know anything about it. He asks something about Bob. Have I spoken with you before? Somebody killed you. Do you know who killed you?
Oh, the gun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I heard he used a gun, and at the time even, I was just like, well, is Kent just taking what I said and mashing it up into some horse shit to make me feel something's going on? And then I looked up the whole situation, and then I found out that that it was true, or that there was a guy named Bob McKee who died. He was shot 3 times, and it's this unsolved case. I will tell you, I that's out of all the spirit box stuff I've ever heard. That one, to me, personally, not like on other people's shit, but personally, wow, that's pretty interesting to me because I didn't know the story. I felt at the time he was probably pulling my leg, and then so I decided to look into it a little bit further, thinking that I would, at least be able to prove that he was pulling my leg or something. And then instead, I found this story. I'm sure you have, you are the voice of reason here, so.
So with that, I did listen to it, and I know it was presented. I think it was presented as a strong case. I think somebody said it was a strong case for it. And,
I did.
Okay, so I do disagree. We're using a radio, and I think that's the first issue that we have. We really don't have to go too much further. We're using a radio, and it's scanning the frequencies. That's what it's doing. It's receiving radio transmissions. That it's doing its job, except it's doing it a little differently because it's not supposed to scan where you hear everything. So it's modified to do that. But aside from that, it is scanning through all the available radio frequencies that are broadcast in the area. Excuse me. And you're listening to it, and it really has no effect. What you say, the questions you ask, what you do in that room had absolutely no bearing on what came through that radio. They are two separate events. And we see that a lot when people use things like this Estes method, which is just buy a science book, people. Realize you're doing it wrong because these are two separate events. People can stand around someone that's listening to it with headphones. It doesn't fucking matter. There is no link. There are radio stations coming through a radio, and it's going to happen no matter what the people around them are asking questions with. They can ask all the questions they want. There is no connection. There are two tracks running at the same time. So when you're doing this, when you're playing this, and you interpret something that comes across as he used a gun, you're in the middle of a station. You're not even sure if there were words before it. You're not sure if there were words after it. You're not even sure if the words that you hear are actually the words that you heard. It could be anything. It could be half a word that you heard on the end. But we don't know because there's no other control. We don't know what that station that you heard that sound was coming from. We don't know what that station was broadcasting at that time. It could be a commercial. It could be a commercial for a movie or a TV show that has a phrase gun in it, or he used a gun. It could be something from like a cop show or something like that. There's a plethora of ideas or opportunities there, but we don't know because there were no controls in place. It was a completely random event. And again, it comes back to, I'm not even sure it said that. I didn't hear that, but I'm just a different person hearing it. The other problem is that Ken already knew the story because he says it before stuff goes on. Before I think you hear the gun, the gun, let's call it EVP or something like whatever you want to call it. I mean, Ken actually says that there was a guy that was murdered. He was shot 3 times.
And he doesn't say that until after.
So after that?
Yes.
Are you the one that murdered? All right. So I'll have to look at that again. Because, yeah, I mean, all I have here is the question, are you the one that murdered in Newport? And Ken says shot 3 times, and Bob.
Yeah, Bob comes up before, but he says, he does say someone, he says, you were murdered. Do you know who murdered you? He does say that. And then I heard that he used a gun, and he was like, that's right. He used a gun. You were shot 3 times. That's when he concludes that.
So that tells me he already knew the story. So he was well aware of the story. So he went off of you, like you heard it and you interpret it that way. But did you already have the idea that this guy was murdered?
Well, yeah, I guess I would have.
Yeah.
I didn't know how, but yes.
Right.
I guess I would have.
And that's, I mean, honestly, when someone's murdered by gun is the first thing that I think of. So maybe that's, and again, like this is speculation because I don't know what you were thinking. I wasn't in your head. But if you already have this information and he brings up the idea that somebody was murdered and you hear he used a gun, was it because you were influenced and that's what you were thinking? Like, all right, he was murdered, gun, knife. Those are the logical conclusions that I would come up with. And you were listening for that. It's interesting to think about that. But again, I don't know what you guys were thinking at the time. Again, it really comes back to the idea that we don't know what was really said over that broadcast because we're only getting a part of it. We got a part of it, and we're not getting the whole thing. You know, and it could have bled through into the static between stations, and it changes the word. And again, like, English is a very screwed up language. We have shortcuts in what we say. You can have a conversation with people. Like for me, and this is a big Philly thing. All right. So I can look at my wife and say, "Gee, yet?" Like, what did I say?
Did you eat yet?
Yes. But I didn't say all that.
Right.
I literally said, "Did you eat yet?" I said one word.
Right.
And like, you knew what I said. My wife knows what I say when I say that. But I didn't say all the words that make up that sentence, that question. So we have a lot of shortcuts. And when you're listening to a radio program with either commercials or a DJ that's talking, or maybe an interview that's going on, you're going to get these shortcuts. So who knows what's actually being said unless you have the proper context of that broadcast. You need to know what that person was talking about, the start of the sentence, the finish of that sentence, and sentences before and after to understand what's going on, what they're talking about. But when we take these shortcuts in ghost hunting, where it's like, all right, we're going to listen to a radio that's going to cycle through stations at a certain speed that we can adjust. So we're only getting less than a second of each station, and it's going to go through really fast. We're expected to get clear messages through that? No, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen at all. And it's funny how I see people adjust the speed. They want it faster. And that just makes it harder. You are literally creating anomalies in order to report them by doing that. You're not doing science. You're not doing a good investigation. You are manipulating the tools in order to create anomalies. And it's sad. And I'm not saying that to you. I'm saying to the general community that do this. Because for an example, I did one not too long ago, a few months ago. Someone convinced me to sit down and do this Estes method, which I hate. I hate it. It frustrates me so much to listen to that crap. But they had it on the slower setting. And I think they were getting upset because I was calling out the commercials and the songs that I was hearing these words from. Like, I knew it was from a Tide commercial. I knew it was Johnny Cash that I was listening to when the song came on. So I was calling that out, and then they sped it up. And it made it harder. So now you're focusing on trying to find some word or some part of word, something that you recognize to spit out. And that means you can hear almost anything and spit it out because you're trying and you're not paying attention to all the words that went by too fast that you didn't pick up. And even when you said something, if you say Charlie, while you're saying that, 6 or 7 stations went by and you're not listening to those words. So I think it's a terrible method. I really think the community as a whole, when they use these methods, they just show how ignorant of science they are. And how they don't understand what they're doing, and that they're just grasping at whatever weird thing creates an anomaly that they can, put on their YouTube channel or put on their social media page or whatever. We can do better.
Yeah, going back to, and I don't know if you picked up on this, and I think because it's so funny because I haven't heard anybody say this yet. But it's right there in episode 1, right in their faces. I'm doing the SS method, and I say Hollywood. You remember that? It does happen. I say
No.
Hollywood. Okay. Well, Lucas, it's right around the time that we get the EVP because we switch focus, right? We're switching
Okay.
focus. That's probably why you don't remember it. I say Hollywood. Well, in the fucking beginning, during the credits, what do we pass? The Hollywood Casino.
Nice. What I did pick up was at one point, was it James? Jimmy. It came up on screen as James. But he was doing this. He had the headphones on and he was calling out words. And I think that was you? Oh, okay. All right. So that was you. You say plagiarism and everyone ignored it. And that is a good example of you called out a word. It wasn't relevant to anything that you guys were talking about. So it was completely ignored.
Well, I said that. I said there's a lot of things that were said that didn't have anything to do with anything.
Right.
I did say that, yeah.
So then it comes down to what's the criteria for determining what does? Is it just because it works with the question? That's it? I mean, that's really weak. That is very, very, very weak. And I mean,
there's only a few times where anything that I said sounded like anything to like, can you tell me how, or can you tell me, like, I don't remember what Ken asked, something like, can you tell me who killed you? Or he's always with the who killed you, you know? And I respond with, I can't. And then Luke was like, oh my God, he said, I can't. That's pretty fascinating. But it's like, well, out of the myriad of other shit that I said, it's really not. You know, it's just like a clock's a wrong clock is right twice a day.
There's for another example, the first time I met Side Eye Guy, the only time I met Side Eye Guy, we were in the Bel Air house and I did the Estes method, hated it, complained. He did it. And they had a few ghost hunters there, but they were asking questions and trying to make connections with what Side Eye Guy was saying. And at one point, I think I got frustrated and I was like, you know what? Like, I explained everything that I just explained to you. And I was like, how about we try this? Stop asking questions and see if he still continues to call out names. Because if you think this is communication and the ghost is putting words on that radio for him to hear and call out, then it should stop completely if you stop asking questions. And we did. Side Eye Guy continued to call out names and different words. So it just demonstrated that these are two separate events running alongside each other. Nothing to do with each other. And then one exercise I also ask people to do is if you're watching the local news or national news, whatever, if you're watching the news on TV, do an EVP session. Just ask the same questions while you're watching the news and see how many times your questions line up with something that's said on the news that will answer that question. Especially if you're doing names and dates all the time, and include the commercials. Because now you got furniture and sports and cities and airlines and all this, everything's possible. So do that a few times and realize, oh shit, it's random.
Yeah. I can't really think of anything else. You say you got a lot of notes, so obviously you wanted to touch on some things. You feel free to.
Well, I mean, some of them were just, let me see. Let me go through this. I write notes as I go, as I'm listening to something. And that's the gun comment. Kent, there was a couple of issues with Kent. I didn't believe what he was saying. I didn't believe his story. He didn't come across as genuine to me. It came across more as a attention grab. That he was excited that you guys were there and he had that spotlight effect, that addiction, and he just wanted to be on camera, tell his story, and not answer to your questions. You know, like if you had questions that he could answer that promotes what he was doing and his YouTube channel, so be it. But when you questioned some of the things he was doing, then he was out of control. And I think you guys touched on that. Like when he couldn't be in control of something, he wanted to veer off and do something else. That. I wrote down, good point. That you voice your concern. Calling out loud. I like that. See, it's not all bad. I do write down the good points when I'm like, oh, that was great. That's another EVP that we talked about. There was a hearing, the rest of the stuff, the yes, no box. I didn't really care about that much.
Yeah, we didn't even do anything with the yes, no box.
Yeah.
With you. But that was when he was like, so we bring out this other piece of equipment that he's never used before. And, you know, he didn't like the Estes method. They're doing things that he's never done. And he, you know, we're asking questions and stuff. Nothing's happening. And I kind of like, he goes off because he thinks he hears something downstairs, right? It's him trying to take focus away from what we're doing to go doing what he wants to do, right? And I'm like, this thing isn't doing anything. And Luke's like, I hate that box. And then Kent comes back with, well, they do things when they do things. You know,
right.
If you ask them to do this, they're not gonna whatever. Well, the thing is, there is a video of him, and I hope it's still on the internet. I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter now, but there was a video of him using a K2 meter to blink for once for yes and twice for no, right? And he was asking questions, and so was the guy with him that used to live in the house. And it was, that's exactly what he was doing.
Right.
And I know how he was doing that. It's, you got a walkie-talkie.
Right.
I know that's how he was doing it. But yeah, like when we bring equipment and we do it, well, then I'm treating the spirits like they're stupid. And he put it as another thing. The spirits tell him that Edmund murdered Rachel and buried her under the house, and possibly Abby. The spirits told him this, right? And I made he touched on that because I was one of the guys that he used to be his agent. His name's Ben Elliott. He used to work behind the scenes for Kent, got him on the news, got him into paranormal, caught on camera and all this stuff. And he and I were talking, and I brought that up. I brought up the fact that he's talking about raping and murdering girls and all this stuff. And so Kent does a response video to this on Facebook, okay, to the people that already hate me because I'm outing Kent, okay? He doesn't put it on YouTube because he doesn't want to draw attention to me. He also did another video, and I'll get into that in a second, that is on YouTube, but one piece at a time here. I lost my place.
Doing a video.
Yeah, he did a video, and he says, well, I don't ever remember ever saying that this happened. I didn't say it. The spirits are saying it. And I fucking lost my shit on him because I made a response video to his video. And it's just like, if you're in fucking court, if you're in a legal court, and someone's coming to you and saying, you're out slandering these people, and you say, well, I never said that. The spirit said that. That's not going to fucking fly. That's not going to fly. I don't know what world you live in, but that's not going to fly.
Right.
It just irritates the shit out of me because he's not holding the responsibility.
Right.
He won't because, he knows that he's being a worthless piece of shit, and the thing about what he did on the video on YouTube, so I questioned the whole thing about the house being a funeral home. It was never a funeral home. I know it was never a funeral home. but he will not. He will die with the lie when it comes to that.
Right.
And his response video was the Edmund Lamb's undertaking rooms at 1 Main Road. Okay, that's the address for 1 Main Road, was the Edmund Lamb undertaking rooms, 1 Main Road. All right, well, I live on Main Street. Was Main Street Main Road then? More than likely, and all this, right? And not to fucking mention that his address is like 804 Main Street. But he doesn't know, you know, I'll have to, because he's made this video about that. I'll probably touch on that a little bit in the episode, because it's the only response I've got from him.
Okay.
That's the only response from him. And he doesn't talk, he doesn't mention my name. He doesn't mention my channel because he's being very careful. But it's like, really what we've determined is that Main Road, because back then the highway system didn't exist. And what would have been the main road back then would have been what came from the most direct town, I think, east of there, traveling to the town west of there. That would have been the main road, because that's where all of the businesses were too. And that's, a lot of towns call them Main Street or Main Road. Yeah. But they switched it because the other road goes to the interstate now, which goes to Bangor, and now that's Main Street instead of Main Road. Anyway, holes in his excuses, you know. Anyway,
the only other thing I'll bring up is, at one point, I think you're talking about the ghost box. And I think you make a quote saying that it just doesn't make sense that you would hear the same voice 10 or 20 radio frequencies down the line. And I wanted to touch on that because it actually does make sense. I mean, if you're cycling through the stations, depending on how fast it's going through, within sometimes 6-7 seconds, sometimes 10 seconds, you're going to hear the same station because it's going to cycle through. And if it's a closer station, the signal is good, you're going to get a stronger response. So if there is a talk radio or a news broadcast or something like that, you're going to hear it. And you're going to hear the same voice over and over and over again. So it is possible. It is possible just to hear the same voice. And I just wanted to touch on that. Yeah. If it is a commercial and it's a popular one, you could hear the same one going across different stations. And if it's in the rotation, then you could possibly hear it like 2, 3, 4 times within a few minutes.
In a few minutes, I absolutely. I think the thing for me was it was all at once, you know, and you have, let's see here, it starts at like 88.3, I think is where the band begins, and goes all the way to
107.
I think it goes to like 108, no, 109 even. I think it goes all the way to 109, which isn't much.
So you got FM goes from 88 to 108.
Okay, so that's
100 channels.
100 channels.
Yeah.
100 channels in a matter of seconds. Those things don't move that quickly. It's going. We probably sweep through the entire band in about. If it's going 1 per second, I guess. Well,
you're not. Your speed. Depending on what you're using, the speed is based in milliseconds, right? Not seconds. So it would be something where you would have to actually set the different speeds and watch it and then time it and see how fast it actually cycles through, depending on what speed setting you have, and then go from there. Because you're talking only a few seconds, and that's the difference between asking a question like, hey, what's your name? And then waiting a little bit, hearing something and going, oh, I heard a name. People are, okay, you heard Roger? Okay. Where are you from? Like in just that little short time, you can easily cycle through and be back to the same station and hear the same voice.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, most of the notes I had were just on the different, like writing down quotes, making sure I got it correctly, and then just what I thought and timestamps and stuff like that.
Yeah, cool.
I did have stuff on not much, but on the bones. I just didn't like that whole thing with the bones, finding the bones after the guy like walked away and then came back, like, and then having the cross. That's just sick. That is just pure exploitation, in its purest form. So
and the thing about it, the thing I think that seals the deal is the cross.
Yeah.
You know, like if he hadn't brought that cross, I mean, it would still be exploitation nonetheless. But I would have been hung up on it a little bit. Like I would have been like, you know, because I said it's like the bones could have been in there, you know, but the fact that he brought this cross out, it tells me otherwise.
Yeah.
If he hadn't, man, and it's just like
you nailed it. I mean, you nailed it when you said like he had that story in his head already. Like he knew the ending to this part of the story. And when he brought that cross out, that was just everything coming to fruition. He was like, yeah, you know, I'm ready. I'm going to pay my respects. When in reality, you would not know. You would not know if you were going to find anything. And there was no reason to do that. And it's sick. It's just sick that he did that.
And it's right there in front of people's fucking faces. And they still are like, no, Kent's real. I have messages well, not every day anymore, but man, a couple of days ago, someone, Kent's the real deal. I was there at the beginning. I'll be there till the end. It's like, well, you're an idiot.
Yeah. Have a nice life.
Right. You know, it's like you can lead a horse to water.
Right.
You know,
there's too many things that he did wrong. There's too many just red flags on everything from the stupid shirt being taped in the window.
Telling on himself when you remember?
Yes, he mentioned it. I'm like, you're an idiot. You're actually going to say that, and now we know what shirt you're using. Okay, great, good job, dumbass.
Yeah, and then like I mean, I made it a point because like I say a lot of things without saying it in the documentary. I just let you know. And it's like when he's telling the story and when he's done, it's just like you could just see it in his face. It's like, you know, like I would love to have like some of those channels that analyze people's behaviors.
Oh yeah,
through and
look at
yeah. I mean, it's just I don't know, man. And you know, I don't have any school. I didn't go to college. I barely graduated high school. You know, but it's like you don't need a college degree to know when someone's full of shit.
Yeah, I mean, the signs were there, and again, they were obvious signs. He just didn't cover up good. He was not expecting so many people to pay attention. And he wasn't, not only was he not prepared, but I just don't think he was capable of keeping up with it. And that's why it just got sloppy. And especially when you got a couple people coming right into his home and going, all right, you know, all this shit happens right in this bedroom. Where is it? You know, nothing's happening now that we have the lights on. Oh, wow. Okay. Good job on that, though.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I really wanted it to be real.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, you know, I'm throwing him bones, even though I've caught him in all this shit. You know, and why am I doing that? I guess maybe it's probably even more for me, to be honest with you, because I wanted it to be real in the first place.
Right.
But that's just not how investigating works. You know, you report on what you find. And once I started talking to David and figured that whole thing out, like it turned around completely.
Yeah.
It became a completely different thing. And it was like, and the really strange thing is, you know, I've come pretty close to shooting myself in the foot with this documentary because I mentioned this when I talked to you on Tuesday. There was a guy that went there to his house as a paranormal investigator before he had his YouTube channel. And I was like, well, that's interesting. Why would he do that if he was faking things? You know, it still is a bit interesting. However, I think I have some answers to see what they do. To see what they do. So in person, so that he can mimic it. I think that's the answer. Because the person who went there was like, yeah, your house is haunted, based on the fact that he thought he heard a spirit box say his name. After that happened, he legit was like, yep, your house is haunted. And it's like, well, then I start learning more about that guy. And now apparently he believes in fucking werewolves. And it's like, you're not in this documentary. He was going to be in episode 2, but I didn't like the shots. I didn't like the way it looked. And it's like, I came this close to like fucking my whole shit up because of the people that had in it.
Right.
You know? There's been a lot of things that have happened that I feel like, and one thing is, you know, I've been interested in this stuff since I was a kid. I've always been into it. And growing up Christian or with Christian beliefs, the idea, it was scary to me. What if I'm doing something God doesn't want me to do and all this, you know? And finally, I just say, fuck it, I'm going to do it and and I believe in God. I hope God has my back on this because it's something I want to do, right? And then now that I'm doing it, see, I spent 10 years on YouTube, on another part of YouTube, video game part of YouTube. I didn't get no love. I mean, I've had viral videos, hundreds of over 5 million views on that channel.
Right.
17,000 subscribers. I don't get any love. There's no community for me there. There's nobody that talks to me that's waiting. There's none of that. When I do what I want to do here, because I just believed in it and it was something that I wanted to do, because I'll admit that whole thing was the video game thing was an attempt to make money to take care of me. You know, I wanted to be a famous YouTuber. Yeah. And now I'm like, fuck that. I just want to do stuff. And now that I'm doing that, here's the community. Yeah. The community's showing up. I'm meeting people like you. I'm meeting people, talking. People are interested in what I'm doing. I'm interested in what other people are doing. People are showing up and giving me money. Things are happening that I wasn't looking for.
Right. That's good.
Yeah. Now there's this girl, Horror of Horror. I don't know if you've ever seen her around.
No.
But she's like, hey, we're hitting it off. And it's like, this is weird. This is fucking weird. This whole thing is weird, you know? And I think it's like opening the next step to whatever the next chapter is. The first episode was accepted at the 14 Film Festival in the United Kingdom.
Okay.
So I'm going to keep pushing and trying to get it out there because I would love to be able to make documentaries. It doesn't even have to be paranormal. I'd love to be able to make documentaries for, you know, as something that I do as a job, you know.
Right.
I like the idea of this. Now, again, I have to stay level-headed and say, you know, that may not happen.
Right.
But it's just interesting to me, the doors that have opened since I've switched what I thought I was supposed to be doing to I'm just doing this for me and see, you know, because I just want to do it, you know. And now all of a sudden, you know, I'm very spiritual and I do believe that there is some sort of spiritual element to it. I've changed the way I pray, you know. Do you still believe in God? Is that
I do not.
Okay.
No.
So, I do, and I think, you know, I'm sure you've heard of the law of attraction. What was the guy's name? It doesn't matter, but they call it the universe. If you put in the universe what you want or whatever, or you get what you give. That
put it out there and it'll come back to you. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And this whole time I always felt that I was a failure and that I didn't deserve this and on all this other stuff. And so that was the life that I lived. But I think that the universe, when they talk about the universe responding and giving you what you think you deserve, I think they're talking about God. I think they're one and the same thing. And again, I know that may not be resonating with you, but it's it's interesting that when I shifted how I pray, instead of, thank you for forgiveness or whatever, but like, God, if you'll just do this, and I would love to have this, and please hear me, I need this, and all this bullshit, to thank you for this. Thank you for my financial freedom. Thank you for the ability to make good financial decisions. Thank you for the ability to surround myself with people who only want the best for me. Since I've done that, those things are happening. Those things are happening. And that's interesting because it's like this whole time I've been struggling emotionally, mentally. And I mean, I still struggle, but I feel different since I've been doing this. And again, it could all just be some sort of psyche thing. I understand that, but I know, man, I know if I told you that, I know God's real, and I know how that sounds being somebody who doesn't, who doesn't. But I have had things happen that I'm not somebody who's just going to go, that's God, that's a ghost, that's this, that's that. I do not do that. I don't. And when I hear this, when I've experienced the things that I've experienced, it's like, what? I cannot come up with another explanation, and I've tried, and I know that you're being left in the dark about some of the things, but it's because it's long-winded, and I don't want to bore you, and I know you probably have things to do. It's just, and I'm not trying. The best thing that I can do as somebody who believes in God is just be a positive person and be, just be positive and put out positivity. I'm not trying to be like, God's real and you're a sinner and you should believe. I don't do that shit. I think the best thing for me is to live through it the way that it's taught, that Jesus did, where you just are this beacon, the best that you can be and hope that you can be. I make mistakes, sure, and hopefully that other people will see what my faith has done without having to say anything to them. I think that's the way it's meant to be.
Well, I would only say that if that works for you and you're not preaching to everyone that that's the absolute truth, then so be it. That's you. I mean, I have achieved my dreams for myself. Like, that's how I see it. I got here in this position because of what I did. I worked. I did what I was supposed to do. I worked and provided for my family. But I did this extra. All the freelance work I did over the years was extra stuff that I wanted to do. And it was almost along the lines of what you're saying. Like, it's not stuff that I had to do. It's stuff that I loved doing. And I found that there was a community out here, and that they responded to some of the stuff. I don't look for the spotlight. I like doing what I do. I love doing what I do. And the only person I can credit with getting me here is first myself, because I'm the one that worked for it.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that,
right.
I don't know if it came across that I was saying God's the reason why I'm getting these things. I don't know. I did the work.
Right.
I did it. Yeah, I did it. I'm aware of that. I just
want to be careful because I don't want to get into a religious debate, or anything. I mean, I understand where people start, I guess, to just put it bluntly, when people start giving credit to a deity, whatever deity that they believe in. And some of the things that you said kind of stood out to me, where it makes me immediately think about like childhood cancer and all the things that happen to children who can't do anything for themselves, who need the help. And it doesn't, and I'm not trying to say it's petty or anything. Again, I'm just talking in broad terms, but for someone, for any of us to find like a job that we like, or find a hobby that we like doing, that we can make some money off of, is inconsequential to
a child that is dying of cancer, that
Absolutely.
is suffering. And I've seen it firsthand. I've worked in hospitals. I mean, I spent years working in University of Pennsylvania, right next to Children's Hospital of Pennsylvania. So I've seen all of this. And every day it makes me wonder, like, what's the point? You know, why are these children going through this? Why?
Right.
Why? For what purpose? There is no purpose for this. There's no reason that children should be going through this. And then I go home to my family and a nice warm bed and a good meal and all this. And yeah, I have all this stuff. And again, I'm not trying to put you down or anything. It's just, these are the thoughts that pop up into my head when I hear things like this.
They're reasonable thoughts. They're reasonable thoughts. I'm not, you would have to do a lot to try not to offend me.
Okay.
I know we're very new with each other. So, it's not like that, man. I listen, I consider, and I think when I'd be courteous. So, I know you're asking me, and I think reasonably, the only thing I can say is, I don't know.
Right. And to be clear, I'm not asking you.
I know.
I'm not, because I know you don't have the answer.
Yeah. I think it's very easy to look at it, and because no child should suffer. I mean, I have my little boy, and when that dude ran over my little boy's legs, I wanted to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to, if I had had a gun, I may have.
Understandable. Yeah.
But and we don't know what the death of a child, that butterfly effect, yes, it's very devastating. What happens because that happened? Where does all the emotion and all the interaction and all the shit that happens because of that? We don't know. And it doesn't make the child's death right. So I get it when people ask those questions, and I wish I had an answer, but I know it's not for me to do. And I'm sorry. I don't.
It's all right.
Yeah.
And hey, sometimes we just need to talk, so it's cool. I mean, I've traveled around enough to experience and engage with people that have different beliefs, or believe in different entities or multiple entities, and it's always fascinating to me how I hear, and again, this is not anything to you, but I hear the same conviction, the same assuredness, the same solid belief that they know that their entity is real, even though they're all completely different. And
I just don't know what it is. I don't know that I don't believe that it's the God that's being presented in the Bible. This tyrannical, angry, jealous thing.
Well, depending on which version, New Testament, Old Testament. I mean, they're very, very different gods.
Yeah. And I don't know exactly that alone right there says that whoever wrote that didn't know what the fuck they were talking about. I don't know that it is. I don't think it is, because we as humans, we try to humanize things. We try to humanize ghosts. We try to humanize demons. We try to humanize God.
We humanize. We put human characteristics on pets and animals and cartoon characters and plush animals that aren't real animals. Right. So we do this. Can
relate, and so it's all about being able to try and understand it in our way. And it's like, well, our way isn't even right. Like, there's just no way you can. It doesn't make sense that God would, if God was a God, he would be above human emotion. He would be beyond that. You
would think, and not treat his creations like action figures.
Right. Yeah. And so to me, I don't know that it is that, but I know I've felt things that, which our bodies are the way they are, right? Our bodies will mislead you.
I give credit to the community. That's it. It's not, I got here because I worked hard, but I also credit the community because I relied on people. I I built upon other people's work. I engaged with people. They supported me. And now, even now, it's not an I job. It's a we job, because I mean, I get help from other people. I reach out to other people and we get things done. So I credit the community as why I got this job and why I still have this job. And everything else that happens. I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, I try to put positive attitude out there. I try to be as nice as I can. And I don't think you need a religion to do that. It's just my personal opinion. I just want to, if someone needs help and I can help them, I do it, because I think that's the right thing to do. If somebody needs a place to crash, I got a spare bedroom. You can crash here. You know, if I have $20 in my pocket and you're homeless and I see you, you need it more than I do. So, I mean, just being a good person is just a reflection on what kind of person you are.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with anything else.
Yeah.
So, well, you keep putting positivity out there, and I think it returns because people see it and they get influenced by the good attitude. So, good job.
Yeah, thanks, man.
And you all right?
Right.
Good.
Yeah, man, I'm good.
All right,
I'm
good.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate it.
No problem.
I will not do you wrong. I will make sure that
You better not.
you know,
I can track you down.
I know you can, and find out things that I thought were buried.
Yeah. That's fun.
Yeah, no, I won't do you wrong. I'll make it. I want to be proud of it myself.
Good.
But I want all of you to be proud to be a part of it. So.
All right. Cool. I mean, I've learned my lesson a few times. I never say anything that I wouldn't say publicly. So, I mean, it's all good. And I look forward to seeing the finished product whenever it is done, and we'll go from there.
All right, my friend. Thanks again for sitting down with me today.
No problem. And send me a link to whatever Dropbox and stuff so I can shoot you the extra footage.
Gotcha.
And then, if you ever need help, I'm just a text message away. So, all right.
All right. Thank
Cool.
you very much.
All right. Have a good night, buddy.
You too now.
Bye.
Bye.
And we'll stop.